And then finally, 4B, a request to approve the accounts payable register. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second? Second by Jason. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to resolutions, we have a request to approve an encroachment agreement for Midstate Trucking Equipment. Mekhi?
Good morning. This is Hatem Mekhi, Assistant Director of Engineering. And before you is the request to approve an encroachment agreement for Midstate Truck Equipment. This is a property on the intersection of Easy Street and Allisonville Road. They came to TAC to divide their lot into two. So as part of that TAC process, they are required to donate the half right-of-way on Allisonville Road, and that's about 60-foot half right-of-way. So in the process of donating that right-of-way, there is a portion of their property that is now considered in public right-of-way. So there's part of their parking and part of their, and also their sign is in the public right-of-way. So this is just the a request to approve their encroachment agreement for those parking spots and for that sign.
So they're going to dedicate the right-of-way, but then we're going to allow them to keep their...
Yes.
Okay. Was the right-of-way before out to the center line?
It was in the center line, and it was right at the edge of the sidewalk. So now it's just a little bit more.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Any additional questions for Mekhi?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mekhi. Next is a request for declaring vehicles and equipment as surplus for trade-ins. I don't believe I see Tabitha here, but this is our standard surplus for any of our vehicles that we're either trading in or equipment that we're selling. Are there any questions?
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a request to approve road cut on Allisonville Road. It wouldn't be construction season without some sort of road cut.
Yes. Again, Hatem Mekhi, Assistant Director of Engineering. And before you is a road cut on Allisonville Road. This is part of the sanitary sewer project that is tying in the patch project right adjacent to the airport and also the Andretti property to our main sewer line on 106th Street. This is there are two items here in this request. One is a road cut and a closure of that right turn lane for them to tie into the manhole that's right there on the right turn lane. So they are going to pretty much try as much as possible not to cut into the road and just tie into that manhole without getting into the road envelope itself. And the other part is a lane restriction on Allisonville Road. It's the rightmost northern bound lane. They're working on the fence on the airport property, so they're just going to need some space to house their equipment and be safe for the motoring public. Each of those items are going to be at most 2 weeks at a time. So there's going to be 2 weeks for the tie-in and 2 weeks for the lane restriction on Allisonville Road.
And do you know a timeline when this would occur?
The timeline, they're now currently working from the midpoint up to patch, and then the timeline to get to that location is around end of April, May timeframe.
Okay. Any questions, Jeff? Go ahead.
Is that a permanent 2 week? I would say permanent, but a temporary full closure.
Full
for
2 weeks for each one of them.
Okay.
So 2 weeks for the right turn and the tie-in, and 2 weeks for the northern, the farthest most northbound lane.
But this will all be done well before 96 in Allisonville then?
Yes,
obviously.
well before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, any additional questions for Mekhi?
No.
I can't complain about the utility this time because it's us. So.
Right. And it's trying to use existing borehole.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mekhi. Next, we have a request to approve community amendment to agreement and rate addendum. Mr. Holgren.
Good morning, gentlemen. Elliot Holgren, Deputy Mayor. So again, this is a request to approve an amendment to the master agreement we have with SciHo Community Health Network. So this is for our employee health care plan. So we entered into this agreement January 1st of last year. It's a unique arrangement where we have a not to exceed percentage increase on our health care plan year after year for 5 years, rather than be subject to the fluctuations in the marketplace that a lot of folks across the country are seeing. And so this amendment does two things. Number one, it locks in our 2023 rate at 2022's rate, so we're not increasing this year. And number two, rather than just a percentage increase year after year, we tie it now to the loss ratio. So if it's 80% of loss ratio or less, we actually go down by 2%. If between 80 and 88%, we'll do the 3% increase. And 88% and above, 80 to 88%, we stay flat. And 88% above, we go up to 3%. So there's two changes that are represented in this amendment. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I think through Deputy Mayor Holkren's additional negotiation with these folks, we were always on the hook for the 3% growth, but now we have an opportunity that if we do see a significant decrease, that we have an opportunity to experience some of the savings from that. So I think that's a good addition to this contract that we didn't have before with Community. And so far, the service that Community's provided our employees has been really pretty outstanding. We've had very few issues in the transition, and they're starting to pioneer some really great programs. We had a police officer who had a heart attack a year and a half ago, Elliot.
Yes.
And they created this program to do heart scans for all of our public safety and then all of our employees. And when they did that, we found 5 police officers that needed pretty immediate follow-on care. And they're pioneering a cancer screening tool for our firefighters as well, which is something that's on the minds of a lot of our firemen these days. So they've been a great partner to work with to date. Are there any additional questions for Elliot at this time? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
For all the folks here, I recognize a lot of faces, so I know you guys are here for the next agenda item. We try to move through the regular agenda as quick as possible out of respect for all of you. So we're going to move on now to the public hearing on Barrett Law preliminary resolution. I'd ask Lindsay Bennett, our city attorney, to maybe walk through the process so everybody understands the context for why we're here today and kind of what the steps are moving forward.
So we're here today on a public hearing for the Barrett Law project. First, Jason Taylor, our Director of Engineering, will get up and explain the project. And then any person who's interested in the project has an opportunity to be heard. Is it a 3-minute timeline? So you'll have 3 minutes to come up and discuss either your support or non-support of the project. And at that time, we can either make the determinations as required by Indiana Code, or the board has the opportunity to keep the hearing open depending on what those comments may be.
So we appreciate everyone's work to date. I know a lot of you have met with Jason and his staff on multiple occasions to have a discussion about this. So Jason, you want to talk a little bit, just a brief overview of the project, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing.
Good morning. Jason Taylor, Director of Engineering for the City of Fishers. Back in February of 2022, we had received a request from the Property Owners Association, the POA, for both the east side and the west side of State Road 37, those private roadways, Britton Park, Trade Center Drive, Publishers, Enterprise. And at that time, it was a request for the city to come in and help with taking over the roadways in some way, shape, or form to improve them due to the condition of the roads. As such, the roads are private. This being the public hearing for the first one on the west side. That one, the engineering department, in coordination with the controller's office and our legal team, started to move forward with ways to be able to take that into our inventory, improve the condition of that roadway. And as such, we landed on the Barrett Law process, which 2 weeks ago, the board approved the preliminary resolution of that. Indiana Code, I believe it's 36-936. There you go. And on that preliminary resolution, we put an estimated construction cost. In addition, here during the notice, we have increased that cost, and that modified it to include everything. It's not just the construction cost. It is actually the construction cost, the design, the inspection, the financing, all incidental costs, not to exceed amount. And and for this particular one, I believe the amount is $2.7 million. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Lindsay on the legalities, but I do know that over the course of the past year, engineering has set up regular public information meetings. One was a quorum with the POA on the west side, and Randy Truitt helped coordinate that with the property manager. in which minutes were taken, and then we also put a presentation together similar to what we have shared in the past. Since then, we've done one-on-ones with each individual property owner, as many as we could, and that had requested it or been interested in it. And we've recently, inside the last 60 days, done another public information meeting that we sent notice through Randy and his distribution list to all the property owners, saying we'd like to sit down and give them an update, because we feel comfortable with the Barrett Law now. We're ready to move forward and start moving, and that's where we landed on the preliminary resolution. Be happy to answer any other questions.
One question, Jason, on that not to exceed number, we're speculating at the moment. This hasn't been out to bid. We don't
Right.
know what the costs are actually going to be. So how does that process work if we were able to realize cost savings? If it's not 2.7 million, but it's 2.2 million, how does that work?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, but the way that the code works is essentially we have to set up front a not to exceed amount to include everything, all inclusive, and that does include the construction side of things. We have not bid this project, so we are using our engineer's estimate to do so. Similar scope of work as to what we have done on our road resurfacing projects. So while we feel confident, there's no guarantees. Essentially, whenever the project is complete and we get the exact number for that, also the interest rate for the bond, in addition to determining how long this process takes to get the road complete, capitalized interest, and the issuance cost of that bond is all rolled in at the end. And that's where we're able to determine what the exact cost. It may be, like you said, 2.4, but it will not be more than 2.7. That's where the city does take over the risk of that if it does go above 2.7. We have already started, while we aren't required to do so as a city, we have started doing maintenance on that roadway, plow operations, and then our police is starting to patrol more because it is private. Their enforcement is limited.
Right. Okay. And then have all landowners or participants in this been notified of apportionment?
Yeah, we have not told them the allocation number. We intended to do so after today. We had wanted to do it earlier, but there were some kind of hang-ups on our side and the engineering side. The original approach that we had taken was linear footage, and we were questioned on that, so we went back to it and we started to look at it, and it was, well, that's not really a fair and equitable way to break it up. So we went back and looked at the trip generation and how do we do that with regards to some being vacant land, as well as the square footage of each building and the land use. We have finalized that as of Friday, and for a recommendation to the board. The board does have the ability to make changes on that, and we'll definitely take those in.
And then before we open up for public hearing, just so maybe draw a little further detail on this, Lindsay, today is not the final vote for implementing the Barrett Law. Is that correct?
So today, we're doing the public hearing. The confirmatory resolution is also on the agenda. The purpose of the public hearing is so that everybody affected can come in and be heard, and then the board has to determine special benefits. The confirmatory resolution basically does what the title says, and it confirms the preliminary resolution. We also modified that estimated number to reflect the max number that Jason referenced earlier. So, in the confirmatory resolution, the board would order the work to be completed. At that time, Jason would then take the project out to bid and get those bids, go through the construction of the project, and then at the end of construction, we would figure out what the total costs are, and we would bring an assessment roll for approval by the board, and then at that time, we would start determining what property owner owes what, and if they want to pay up front or if they want to pay over a certain number of years.
And at what point do they start making the payment?
It is at the completion and acceptance of the.
So post 30 days or
Yeah,
something to that
and-
effect?
Yeah, and we're working with our controller's office on that process in order to be able to do a direct payment. And this is a quote-unquote soft lien on the property instead of a direct, assessment towards the actual property.
I also want to mention that at the time when the assessment roll is approved, there is a remonstrance period, and a process that property owners can go through at that time if they are not in agreement with the apportionment that the board has determined.
Right. Okay.
And just so that I maybe stay safe from having to repeat things on the next one, on this one, number 9, the max not to exceed is 2.7. The max not to exceed on number 11 is 1.7. But the reason this one is more expensive is because of reconstruction for the most part on the condition of the roadway being so poor on the west side of the 37 compared to the other side.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So just to reiterate before we open up the public hearing, this is a conversation that's going on for years, this conversation around private roads. We've had the discussion at the council level, we've had it at the Board of Works level, and the overarching belief is that if it's a private road, it's the responsibility of the owners of that road until such time they're willing to come forward, bring the road up to a particular standard, then the city would consider taking it into our inventory. We did have multiple conversations with folks from this board over the last couple of years. There seemed to be some degree of interest, and so we've done our diligence to show you what the financial impact of that is, and we're obviously very interested to hear from all of you what you believe is the right course moving forward. So with that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. If you'd like to step forward, just let me know your name and your address, perhaps what business you represent, and we'll listen to your comments.
You have to separate it between west and east.
Yes, that would be helpful. Let's just do them. Let's start with the west side since that's the one we started with first. Is there anyone here from the west side?
Good morning. Mayor Fadness, members of the Board of Public Works. Is this
Yeah, it's not for.
okay? So I will actually project my voice
thank
and not
you.
worry
Yes,
that I'm
you're right.
booming.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with microphones, unfortunately, and I didn't want to be too loud.
You're not
but-
yelling. That's fine.
Okay. So, good morning. My name is Ashley Albrecht. I'm a lawyer with Taft Law, and I represent the interests of both the Parkside Owners Association and the Fishers Trade Owners Association as it relates to the city imposing Barrett Law assessments against the private roads. And for clarification purposes, are we going to do both public hearings at the same time? Just
If you
or-
want to, well, since you're straddling both, feel free to make comments on both.
Okay. Feel free. I mean, I'm happy to just
I wouldn't want you to have
say
to
it the
duplicate
exact
both.
same
Yeah,
thing
no,
twice.
Go ahead.
But,
Yeah,
okay,
you're fine.
anyways, so first and foremost, collectively, my clients understand that there has been discussions between the city, and generally speaking, are not opposed to the city in this process with regards to at some point in this process dedicating their roads to the city. However, today this hearing is being held for the purposes of deciding whether the benefits to the property will equal the estimated cost of the improvement. And to the best of my knowledge, my clients first became aware of the actual proposed estimated costs that would be associated with these assessments against their property only about a month ago, in February of 2023. And at that time, in a presentation, I'm going to shortcut their names, Parkside Owners Association, or Parkside, was told that the assessment would be around $1 million. And Fishers Trade believed that this assessment would be around $1.8 million. While it's clear that we're here today because discussions have been held regarding this idea, no formal agreement has ever been entered into between the city and my client, who actually owns the roads 100%. So these are 100% private-owned roads, and we appreciate there's abutting property owners who would benefit from the assessments and the roads.
So just, could I ask you to clarify that when you say you're the owner, the person you're representing, are
Yep.
you talking about the association, or are you talking about someone individually?
The association itself
Okay.
owns the road.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a little different than if you would own the road now,
Right.
assessing against the
So
abutting property owners.
So just so I'm clear, you're speaking on behalf of the entirety of the board.
I'm speaking on behalf of the association.
Okay.
So fast forward, or I guess rewind 10 days ago, we received the notice for the public hearing today. The assessments increased drastically, which would have been 1.1 for Parkside, 2 million for Fisher's Trade, and then now today we're hearing another cost of 2.7 for Fisher's Trade and I believe 1.8 for Parkside. So in the course of a month, both parcels have now increased almost roughly $1 million. So we acknowledge there's been lots of work done by everybody here. It's our position that without the dedication of the roads, this would be an improper Barrett Law funding process to begin with. And before this is all scrapped, we are just asking the board to pause for a few weeks until another meeting and maybe another month, so we could just have a meaningful discussion of what the costs actually are. So my clients are more comfortable with the eventual dedication of the roads to the city. And I mean, I can only use an analogy as if any of us were here selling a house, selling property, you would want to know where you are in $1 million scheme of valuation differences before you either sell or purchase property. And it's more of a due diligence on my client's behalf, and just would like to know more information before we get too far down the way and are like, whoa. I mean, 1.1 is a lot different than 1.8.
Great. Well,
1.8 is a lot more than or a lot less than 2.8. So we would just ask that these would be continued so we could discuss with the city a little bit more. If you do decide to proceed today for the point of this actual hearing in determining whether the benefits will equal the estimated cost, we would have to object to those costs as presented today, especially since it's actually fluctuated since the notice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else that'd like to speak today regarding this matter? Yes, sir.
Mike Graber. I'm a owner of building on 12953 Publishers Drive, which is in the Parkside Association. And I just wanted to say that I'm a little confused in that what we just heard, I don't know that it's an accurate depiction of how the owners feel. The board has been completely dormant and is not representative of the landowners. It is currently just comprised of the original developer, I believe. And we've heard nothing from them for years, until just recently they hired a new person to manage that. And so to say that that's a representation of the landowners is probably not an accurate depiction, because I don't believe the board is actually made up of our association, is actually made up of a representation of the landowners other than the current vacant landowners.
Understood. Thank you,
So,
sir.
as a landowner, I believe we are in favor of this.
Thank you, sir. Could you maybe comment on that in terms of the covenants? I mean, do you represent who makes up the board? Who are the officers of the board? And was there a vote by the board to say that they have consensus on your position that you're representing today?
Sure. We were hired by the Homeowners Association for both Trade Center and Parkside, and that is all I'm able to.
You're not aware of any vote or any decision by the collective board or who's on the board?
I'm not. We did our due diligence with representation of the client and the fact that they have authority to engage us as a
So have you
law
read the
firm.
covenants to say that you can stand here and represent the collective action of the board? Like, 'cause
That is my understanding. Yes.
that's your understanding. Okay. But you're not aware, have you had a board meeting with anybody besides one owner or any of these folks?
This was noticed 10 days ago, and so our representation is recent.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm clear. Thank you. Any other landowners that would like to speak?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Andy Wernsman with Tom Roush Lincoln at 13927 Trade Center Drive. I'm not aware of anything going on with the board for the this trade center. This is news to me. I have a couple questions. Thanks for working with us on this. We need to get it done. If approved, do you have a time frame of when it would start and how long it would take? Is
Just
kinda
great,
what-
great questions.
Okay.
Jason, could you answer that, please?
If it is approved today, we would be able to put this out to bid, and we would anticipate starting construction as early as May, June. If we need to delay for further conversations based on feedback, it may have to wait till the following next year due to timing of construction industry and just the nature of
Yeah.
the business, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
So Jason, May, June of 2023.
Of this year, we would, the goal would be, if approved today and go through the process, we would still have some steps on the legal side that we would need to be taken. But ultimately, the goal would be to advertise within the next 30 days, have it awarded within the next board meeting, notice to proceed in June timeframe. Contractors move in, mowed out there, starting the work, completed construction this year. And the reason I say that it may have to wait, if there's delays today, depending on how long those delays are, if we're waiting till the next board meeting, it may be fine to still get completed this year. But if we wait a month, the industry with all of NDOT's work, as well as the local work that is occurring, I don't know if we'll get favorable bids or any bids due to workloads.
So the
Oh.
window's finite, and then otherwise we got to delay till May, June of
Well, we
24.
Potentially.
We meet every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we don't. There's no gun to our head
No.
specifically. So I want to make sure that I want all of you residents were kind enough to come out today. So I want to make sure we don't monopolize time here. If there are any other residents that would like to share their comments at the public hearing, I'd be grateful to hear from all of you. Yes, sir.
I'm Eric Bradford, represent Alderman at 13875 Trade Center Drive. I can tell in the room there's lots of confusion. I don't even know who this lady is, never even heard of her. I think there probably needs to be a postponement, and everybody here needs to figure out what we have going
Right.
on. I was not aware that she was going to be speaking at all on our behalf. And I think the other consensus is the longer we wait, the more money this costs. You know, we went from, I was in a meeting with you about a year
Right.
ago, and it was thought to be $1 million at 1%.
Right.
And then it went to 1.8 and it may be 2. The last letter we have is 2, and then now we're saying maybe 2.7.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 8%. Just discussing with a gentleman in the back, our owners would gladly buy all your bonds at 8%.
Yeah, I understand.
We can all probably
I-
afford our own interest rate at better than this. But my point is I don't think we're ready to have this meeting
Yeah.
at this point.
I think that's an astute observation on both parties' side. I think there are opportunities, Jason, whether we can do the inspection in-house, things that we can do to cut costs. You know, there's opportunities there on our end to try to figure that out. Now, I think we'll always articulate worst-case scenario because we don't want to advertise and tell you all it's going to be 1.3 million, and then it comes in at 1.8 and we can't do the project. So I think one of the exercises that was done here, Jason and Lindsay and the team, was to articulate the very worst case scenario at that ceiling of $2.7 million. That doesn't mean that's going to be the number. We can work hard to get that number down, but we have to advertise
Yeah.
the highest number. But I would very much appreciate that we'd be working with a group that has consensus or everybody reasonably on the same page on
Right.
both sides.
Yeah.
So that we can.
And I
work
think the
for
other
it.
thing, and I don't know if I remember speaking with him about it over the phone, is I think some of the property owners are probably wondering, if there is any value to the land that we're conceding to the city in this?
Yeah.
You know, and that's probably something that maybe we can get informed on.
Right.
On what that decision process is, if there is any value, so we can make a decision from there
Yeah.
on our end as well.
Certainly. Well, I appreciate your comments, sir. Thank
Yep.
you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Doug Gosser, Honda Fishers, 13661 Britton Park Road. It's been a rough journey.
Yeah.
You know, I remember sending out an email trying to get some support for this and tried to contact Man Properties. We don't know who Man Properties are. Nobody ever responded except Randy Truitt. We asked for meetings. We asked for somebody to come visit with us. From Man Properties, nothing. That's when we reached out to you folks, and we appreciate everything you've done.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you represent us. I don't know who you were hired by, but you weren't hired by me or Kathy or Karen. But we want our representation here as well.
We understood, sir.
Yes.
And we appreciate the partnership and your diligence in trying to get this problem solved.
Well,
So,
we just got to keep moving forward and
yeah.
hopefully get it done. Just like everybody else, they want something done.
Yeah.
We're not getting anywhere with man. So,
Understood. Thank you, sir.
all right, thanks.
Anyone else like to speak? Good morning.
I'm Michelle Montgomery. I'm the Senior Regional Property Manager for the Baseline Group. We actually purchased the Fishers and the Parkside Trade Centers. You don't represent us either. But I'm still trying to grasp everything that's going on. How are the contractors that are going to do the project being vetted? Do we have any say in that? What's going to be any negative effects on the project for the ingress, egress of the properties? Because I need to know how that's going to affect our tenants
Yeah.
within those centers. So I agree with the gentleman earlier, and to his point, that I agree we need to postpone it, and it's just not time to move forward. A lot of fluctuations, trying to grasp, what those costs are going to be, because we have to budget for those. So
Right. That's a fair point.
I don't know if anybody has my information, because I'm not getting. I've got one email, but it wasn't directly to me. So whomever I can give that information to make sure that I'm kept in the loop, okay, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Rob Jack with Clover Communities, Fishers. We just started construction on a senior apartment project on the east side.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering, how does this affect us since we're new? We haven't put any trips on the road per se.
Yeah.
How does this affect us?
Jason, you want to comment on that?
Yeah. Essentially, we utilize the Indiana Transportation Trip Generation Manual, and essentially it was the land use that you had and the employees. They utilize manuals. It's a standard across the industry scenario, across the U.S., in order to be able to determine how many trips you have in comparison to the rest of the park, and then that generated a
For
percentage.
future trips?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So do we get to see that before? I mean,
Absolutely.
I kind of
Yeah.
agree with this delay that we need
Yeah.
to see.
Sure.
We are happy to share that, as that's where maybe it was a little confusing earlier when I was speaking. We recently completed that, and as of last week, and we were going to send this out.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Any other?
Hi, good morning, Jocelyn Bear. I'm an at-large member of the Fishers City Council. I just wanted to contribute to the conversation by sharing with you just conversations I've had not only with property owners but tenants of the property owners, and frankly as myself as a city councilor, just questions that have come up. First and foremost, I'm just echoing what you've already heard this morning. It is questions about the timeline, and definitely the loudest I've heard is about the estimated costs and the payment schedule for that. So I am asking, it sounds like there's a lot of questions in the room, but certainly the question about even if we can do the math and work out maybe a best or a maybe worst case scenario for the property owners so that they can plan, that would be very helpful. That's the number one question I have. We'll have a second, will we have a second public hearing? I have additional.
No, you can, if you want to comment on all of it, go ahead.
For one another moment, sharing with you, I'm a small business owner, and I lease from a property owner off of Fisher's Crossing. So also in that neighborhood, my business neighborhood, we know that Fisher's Crossing could be the next opportunity for the Barrett Law to be employed. And what I wanted to share with you today is knowing that whatever communications effort and process that we go through today for the East and West, this current wave, I'm anticipating will be duplicated later on. I just implore you to set up good processes now so that as we move forward, that if Fisher's Crossing is next, that property owners and tenants have good information and know exactly what's happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thanks.
Certainly welcome you to this conversation. Sir? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Randy Truitt,
Hey,
Main
Randy.
Street Management. How are you? Good morning.
I'm okay.
We're the lucky ones that took over the management of.
You are the man in the middle.
I'm the man
proverbially.
in the middle. I want to just talk about just a couple things. I think one of the probably the greatest challenge that we have, whether it's a professional office association or a homeowners association, we have over 130 of these that we manage in one of my divisions. It's number one, getting participation in homeowner associations. With POAs, it's extra hard because you have most of the people that are in this room have attended the meetings. We had meetings in 2022 and in 2023. Still very low number, but a lot of the owners are not local. So the ones that are local have been involved and have been vocal. So one of the things that I've talked with Jason and Rich about is we need to figure out a way to try to build the consensus and have good contact with the owners. I had 3 conference calls yesterday with out-of-state owners talking about the process. They understand what's going on, but they don't understand the conditions of the roads. They don't understand. I sat out there. Most of the people that are using these roads are local citizens not visiting the businesses. And I watched, and it's more of a pass-through. So I think that there's some consideration, as we talked about, that there's some wear and tear on the road that are not being caused by clients visiting the owners that are going to have to pay the bill. So hopefully that can get factored in some way, shape, or form. But we've tried to have as many meetings as we possibly can. One group had maybe 50% of the percentage vote at the meeting. They were all in favor of moving forward in the process, not moving forward at 2 million, 2.7, whatever the number is, because we didn't know the numbers, right, at that time. So I use the analogy, it's like, hey, I'll go to Hawaii for $100.
Right.
But if someone says, will you go to Hawaii for $20,000, I probably wouldn't go to Hawaii for $20,000. So I think there probably needs to be some more discussion, but yet at the same token, I also don't want to delay because I get 3 to 5 phone calls a week when the potholes start to come up.
Right.
We got damage to automobile dealers. We've got all kinds of issues. So selfishly, and of course I'm not paying the bill, so it's easy to say this, but selfishly I would like to see something done because I can't keep paying for bent rims and those different types of things. And when I say we, that means the association. So any help that you guys can give in regard to helping us find out who the deeded owners are and how to contact them, because it's a challenge, but I'll hold meetings till the cows come home. So I'm willing to do what we can.
Well, we
So,
appreciate your work to date and
yeah.
trying to do this. I know you're dealing with lots of different stakeholders, so
Yep.
I appreciate your
Yep.
work today.
And I appreciate you guys looking at it, but I think we just need to make sure, I think we're all in the same boat. We just need to make sure it makes economic sense and is in for the best interest of the owners that are going to end up paying the bill. But I think at the end of the day, something needs to happen
Sure.
to the roads.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Seeing no further public comment, we will close the public comment for today. I will open it up to my counterparts on the Board of Public Works. Jason or Jeff, any comments or questions that you'd like to ask staff?
I think on both, I mean, I asking about both, but from a cost standpoint, I mean, tell them we had a preliminary estimate, and then we came back, because we made sure that we the first time passed, we didn't have all of our cost in. Is that accurate? Like in terms of like carrying costs and design and inspection, is that?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Can I touch on that
Yeah.
real quick? So the statute provides in the preliminary resolution that you need an estimated cost of your construction, incidentals, inspection, and engineering. So that's what we provided. There's another provision later on in the statute that says that you need to file your max estimated cost for the improvement. And then the project cost cannot go over that max cost, or we have to be out of the general fund essentially. So the statute does provide for those 2 different costs at 2 different stages, but I think that's where the confusion came in, where the initial estimate was per the statute, just the construction, incidental inspection, and engineering costs. For the max cost, we wanted to include everything.
Sure.
We wanted to include bond issuance costs, carrying costs, anything that we might incur that might go into that assessment, so that we don't get to the end of the project and find, oh, we didn't estimate the correct amount, and now we're having to pay additional money for this project.
And further clarify on the cost, like some of the financial costs, we had to work with our controller's office to get some assumed costs, because again, we don't know the interest rates, we don't know exact total construction
It's not
costs.
exactly been a great
So,
timing from an
yeah.
interest rate perspective on this conversation.
Correct. So we did have to make some assumptions in there, and to your point, Mayor, we didn't want to assume large numbers. We didn't want to go too small either. So we were trying to be realistic.
Jason, you had a question?
Yeah, I was
Comment?
just gonna say, it already seems like this delay has cost us potential upside, in the worst case scenario. So, and it seems like the landowners that are affected by this road want some action. So we just need to find our best way to move forward and quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have a sense of urgency. You guys have put up with this problem for a very long time. Some of you have been diligent trying to find someone to solve this. The city does want to solve this problem. It doesn't bode well for our residents or your business or your customers to have to deal with this issue. These roads have been in neglect for a long time, and it doesn't bode well for our community. And so we pride ourselves on being decisive here, but we also want to be thorough when we make those decisions. And right now, I think both parties have some work to do. You obviously have some confusion on your part about who's representing you and what is the consensus among all of you. And I also think we owe it to you to provide good information so that you can decide what that consensus is. I think it would be prudent at this point to provide a delay, but not a long delay. Like, we need to sort this out. So here's my answer to all of you. In the next 2 weeks, our team's going to go back and we're going to sharpen our pencil and bring back a number that we think is really what we think the number is going to be. Okay. And so I'll personally oversee making sure that we get an actual number that I think is reality. Okay. I don't think this number is reality that we're providing you today. I think it's the worst case scenario. So let's go get that work done. In the meantime, what I would ask, and Randy, I hate to put it on you, but
It's all right.
how does this group collectively get to some consensus about who's speaking on behalf of them, and what is the general direction moving forward? I think that would be helpful. Please, you come on up. So any one of your out-of-state clients or might be watching.
I think at the end of the day, where I would need the help is trying to ask the local owners to help me on the respective side to find a local touch point, because I'll call a meeting, immediately, with proper notice, of course. I've lived in the political world long enough to know, but with proper notice to have that meeting to discuss a variety of things. One thing, I appreciate the sharpen the pencil comment. Will that include the interest rate also? Because
that's what I'm going to delve into.
Okay, because that makes it almost cost prohibitive on that standpoint.
On all fronts, we'll delve into that. We owe you guys the allocation so that you understand what that is.
Correct.
So we'll get all of that put together from our end so that you know what you're dealing with. But then on the flip side, my ask is there's some organization behind the response from the other side to us saying, yes, we understand. And I don't expect everyone to agree. These things are difficult decisions. But some systemic way of soliciting that feedback would be
And
helpful.
I think if we had the meeting, I can work in conjunction with anybody in the association that's been responsive, and there have been good responsive action of local people, so I will lean on them to help with the local businesses. But if we had a meeting to talk about the true cost, the true ongoing cost, and then I can also work on, because we also had the opportunity of lowering dues this year because of your willingness to take over the maintenance and the snow removal.
Right.
So there was an economic savings to the owners in that regard. So I could then factor. I wanted to try to do that, but Jason, I know they were working through the numbers, but I wanted to try to extrapolate, saying, hey, this is what your dues would be, this is what your dues are now, and then with the increased cost of this going forward, kind of a net sum game to end up. But I will do my part to do everything I can as the man in the middle to try to move it forward.
And my commitment is we're going to move this forward. Like, this is not a 6-month delay. This is not a 5-month delay. to Jason's point, what we do know about the current bidding environment and the current climate is that everything's going to be more expensive a month from now.
Right.
So we need to move as soon as practical. So I appreciate your comments.
Because mainly on the notices is what we do is we send it out to the emails that are on file, right? And those emails could be lease management at xyz.com, and they're in Seattle, Washington. So we need to try to, in order to do this successfully, we'll need to find local contacts, but hopefully the local businesses here will help in
And
that
we
regard.
have 2 more quick agenda items today. And if we could knock those out, I'd be more than happy to give you guys the room after this if you want to talk collectively, because this is probably the biggest collection of business owners you've had in one room at a time. So, yes, sir.
That's something that I was going to bring up. We could collectively here probably talk
Yeah.
and get our solution figured out. But I don't think we are going to be able to move forward until we have a little bit more information from you guys.
Understood. But
So-
I'm talking more just organizing today. Like,
Right, but still, even then, I don't think anybody's still understanding
we're going to get
number.
you more information prior to the next meeting. So,
But I think it'll help you guys understand what we would expect or what we would like to hear.
Yeah.
I want to look at it as an elementary level.
yeah.
You know, the roads have been used publicly for 20 plus years. They've been increased dramatically because of the shutdowns of certain intersections. There's been intersections where they've had to ask concrete trucks not to drive on their private property. And then we're giving away land, which we do or do not know what has value, if it does
Yeah.
have value. And at what point in time does the city go, okay, you guys are giving and we're making you pay for everything,
Yeah.
but we're not offering anything. So what is the
Yeah.
city offering back in towards this cost? Because you guys can't deny that you've not been a party to this, because the roads have been used publicly for 20 plus years and have incurred damages because of that.
Well, we can have that conversation certainly, and happy to have Jason or someone we can hang back and have this discussion with you guys too. I think the idea that the community would subsidize extensively this transaction is probably not a realistic expectation, to take other people's tax dollars to fund this private road. That has not been something that we would look at favorably, but that doesn't mean there's a bunch of in-kind things that we could do to bring down that cost.
But if you told a citizen that, hey, you've been able to drive on this road and never had to pay for it, was that fair?
I think that was a private decision that you allowed people to drive on those roads. I mean, it was a private road. I mean, you could have said only customers could come on this road. You could have closed it down if you wanted to. It could have been permit only, right? My only argument is that if I'm a taxpayer sitting in a neighborhood somewhere and we said, hey, I have to use $500 of your taxes to go pay for this private entity's roads, they may raise a question about why it is that they're subsidizing that. But that's just
Fair
a policy
assessment.
question, right? And so there's a balance there. I don't know exactly what that balance is, but I think we can get creative and try to come up with a solution, because I do think it's for the betterment of everyone to solve this problem,
Sure,
right?
sure,
So
sure.
we can figure that out. So I think we're open to any and all discussions. I'm just saying that the idea that the city's going to come in and buy it down significantly is probably
Right.
not realistic.
I think you guys have resources at your access that are
In
probably
kind.
not being disposed right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
With these numbers.
Like I mentioned to Jason, we could probably do the inspection in-house. Well, that's, 8 to 10% of the cost. So right there, you're starting to bring down the opportunity, or bring down the cost to the business owner. So we're going to work through that. And my commitment to you is we'll provide you guys responses to the questions you had today before you have a meeting internally to have that discussion. So that you're not coming back here and you're just seeing it for the first time, and then we're having this discussion all over again. So, we're going to try to get that done in the next 2 weeks. If that's not feasible, in the next month, let's try to get all of that done one way or another. But we'll get our homework done, give it to you so that you can process it and then provide us feedback, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you.
You bet. All right, moving on, we have, Chief, are you up? You're still here?
Do we have to open the second? Do we need to do some action?
Okay, hold on. All right, I'm gonna open up another public hearing. Chief, if you want to weigh in, I closed the first one already. Would anybody like to speak again on the item 11, the public hearing on Barrett Law preliminary resolutions R031423D? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing, and now we will table items 10 and 12. So those confirmatory resolutions, the portion that Lindsay said would move us forward in the process, we're going to table those for the time being so that we can answer these questions. Is there a motion to table items 10 and items 12?
Motion.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Jason. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Sorry, Chief.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Troy Fettinger is retired from the police department, 29 years of service. It's customary to surplus his issued firearm to him. It is a Sig Sauer P320 9mm, serial number 58J471629. If you have any questions at all for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I wish Troy all the best in his retirement.
Yep, same.
Appreciate all of his service to our community. Is there a motion to surplus?
Motion to surplus.
Motion by Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have one other item. This is the one that we added a resolution approving the second amended and restated Fishers Recreation Center and scoping agreement. This is with the build, operate, transfer agreement, the scoping services that we had for the community center. We needed to add one other item of work, some due diligence on real estate that we didn't have specifically lined out in their previous scoping agreement. So that's before you today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
No.
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the amended?
Motion.
Motion by Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming out today. The room is yours. We're happy to take down, I think we have a pretty good idea of the work that we need to do, but we're happy to answer any additional questions you might have. So, thank you.